Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then hit that subscribe button down below. It would seriously mean so much to me. And we're just gonna hop right into today's video. So in today's video, I'm gonna go over like a few things you need to know when buying a house. This is not every single thing you need to know about buying a house. I'm still learning every day about things that I need to know when I buy a house at the end of the year. But these are just some tips that I've learned along the way as we've been preparing to buy a house. First thing that you really need to understand and know is your credit. When buying a house, you obviously have to have really good credit. This is really going to depend on whether or not you get the house, what you get approved for. It's all based off of your credit. You need good credit in order to buy a house. My best advice is, if you don't have credit or you have bad credit, is take out a credit card, but use your credit card very wisely. Don't go max spending on it. You know, put $20-$25 on your credit card and then pay it off before you're supposed to. So normally you pay a credit card once a month. Put like $20-$25 on there and then pay it off in the middle of the month, and then don't put anything else on there for the rest of the month. It really depends on what company you use. There's a few different rules when it comes to credit cards. It depends on, you know, who you take a credit card out with, and get with them and understand their rules and understand how to build your credit. Where I live, the average score to buy a house is a 671, so you're gonna need around a 671 to buy a house. Of course, you can have a little bit lower, and higher is always better. So that's just the average for me in my area. It all depends on where you live. You can look it up and figure out what kind of credit score you need to buy a house. It's not going to be the same everywhere. Another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't know is when you actually take out your mortgage, your credit score is going to drop. So if you need a car and a house, just know that when you do take your mortgage out and you get your house, your credit score is going to drop. So it's totally normal. It happens to everybody. I feel like a lot of people overlook that, and they're like, you know, anytime you take out a loan, your credit's going to drop a little bit, but you build it back up by paying off your loan. The next thing that you really want to know, and this is not only for the, you know, the sellers, the buyers, this is for yourself. Like, you really need to know what your DTI is, and DTI stands for debt to income ratio. You will need to know this to understand how much money you can put into paying your mortgage every month. So to calculate your DTI, your debt to income ratio, you can take all your monthly debt expenses and add them up. So if you're paying $200 on a car payment, and then, I don't know, you took out a loan for your dog because he had to be rushed to the vet, and that's another $200. Add up all of that monthly debt and then divide it by your monthly income. It's going to come out as a decimal. Switch that over to a percentage, and that is going to give you what your DTI is. And that's basically how much debt do I have versus how much income am I making every month. This is very important for everyone to know, not just you, not just, you know, the lenders. It's important for everyone to know and fully understand what your debt to income ratio is. For me, a good debt to income ratio is 33 to 38%. That is just where I live. Like, it's also like your credit, it kind of varies depending on where you live. The next big thing you need to know before even going to like look at houses and kind of figure out what you want is you need to get pre-approved. It's always okay to just look around on Zillow and see like your personal taste, maybe areas you would like to live in. But before you get serious about anything, get pre-approved. This is going to let you know how much a lender is willing to give you to take out on a house. So before you go looking at houses for $200,000, get pre-approved and make sure you can afford a house, or a lender is going to give you a loan to take out on a house that is $200,000. So you just kind of need to know what you're going to get approved for, what kind of loan. So get pre-approved before looking around at a house. The next big thing is your job. You want to make sure you've been at your job for at least 2 years. They say that that's like a really comfort spot, at least where I live anyways. They will approve you for a year, and of course more than 2 years is great, but they're really looking for at least 2 years. I know when we start looking at the end of the year, it's not going to be quite 2 years for me and my boyfriend. So, you know, try to make sure it's at least 2 years. If you want to try for less than 2 years, that's fine. Just make sure you have really good credit and you have a really good history of paying off your other bills. Some documents you're going to need when actually going in and going through the home buying process. You're going to need your tax returns, you're going to need your W-2s, you're going to need your bank statements, your credit history, all of that stuff that they're going to need to look into. So make sure you have those handy. Definitely be keeping up with your W-2s and your last couple months of bank statements before you go in to actually buy the house, because they're going to need those, and it just makes it 10 times easier if you already have them and you're not like hassling around trying to get them, you know, right before they're ready to go through all the paperwork. Lenders want to see how much money you actually have in your bank account. So if you're making $600 a month, but you're spending $300 of that, and they're pulling your bank statements and they're looking at it and they're like, yeah, they're making X amount, but then they're spending X amount. The last couple months before you go in to get a house, it's always good to try to make sure you have a paycheck and a half in your account. Obviously still be paying off your other bills, and if you can't have a paycheck and a half, that's fine, but don't spend majority of your paycheck, because it doesn't look good, because lenders are already saying like, oh, they're spending almost all of their paycheck, how are they going to be able to afford paying this mortgage? So just make sure you show them that you're making enough money and you can save that money and you can hold on to that money. It doesn't have to be spent, and that's a really good thing to do. Like I said, just a couple months before you buy. You don't have to be crazy and like the whole year before you buy a house, like never spend any money and keep all your money in your account. But definitely like 2 to 3 months before you go into the process, just make sure you're keeping that in the back of your mind and you're doing that. And then my last little like tip here that I want to tell you guys is there's always renting. If you don't feel comfortable buying a house and you aren't comfortable with the process and you feel like you don't know if you're ready to take on paying payments for your mortgage, there's always renting. Renting is a good option. It just kind of depends on who you are. Some people feel like renting is wasting money because you're putting all this money into rent and you're never going to owe anything, or you're never going to own anything. But for some people, it's really in their best interest to rent, to get out, to see what it's going to be like to pay the bills, to see what it's going to be like to have to buy your own groceries, and you know, to just completely be on your own before actually buying a house. And I highly suggest that if you're in the position to do that and you feel like that's what's best for you, go ahead and rent. I know I have my own reasons for why we're buying before renting, and you know, it's really just up to the person and the individual like circumstances. You know, there's no right or wrong. Should I rent? Should I buy? It's really up to you. It's what you want. You have to look at like all of the above things I said and figure out how much you're making, how much you can afford, how much you can spend, and then from there you can really just figure out, you know, what works best for you and, you know, your significant other, or if you want to rent and rent with friends. Renting is always an option. I feel like a lot of times nowadays you see a lot of people buying a house, especially younger, especially on YouTube, because they can afford to buy a house because they're self-employed and they make a lot of money. But don't forget, the renting is an option, and if you have to rent, then that's fine. It doesn't mean that you're not as good or anything like that. If anything, it just means you're being more precautious and you're taking, you know, you're taking it one step at a time to fully understand what it's going to be like to be on your own, and that's totally fine. That's totally okay. So anyways, guys, that's kind of my tips. This is not everything about buying a house. Like I said, you should definitely do your own research. You should figure out your own credit scores that you need, your own DTIs, because they're different depending on where you live. But this is just some of the things I've learned along the way. And like I said, I still have till the end of the year. So I'm moving out. So we're talking December, January-ish. So I still have a few good months. And we are still working on perfecting things like our debt to income. You know, we're working on paying off majority of our bills and things like that right now. So yeah, if you guys like this video, please hit that subscribe button down below. It would seriously mean so much. I would love to do YouTube. I would love to be self-employed and do YouTube because, like I say in every other video, I'm also in college and it's hard working and going to college. It really is. And YouTube is something I wanted to do for a really long time. So if I could pursue YouTube and do college at the same time, like, it would be kind of like the best of both worlds. So yeah, if you guys like this video or if you learned anything, then hit that subscribe button down below. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.